I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do this show live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, except for last Wednesday. Because we didn't do it last Wednesday, because we took the week off.
The only Wednesday we've ever missed.
I think it might be, yeah.
I don't think that's true.
We may have missed, I think, yeah, we may have taken one other Wednesday off.
I'm pretty sure we've missed a Wednesday before. But we can say it's the only Wednesday we've ever missed. I mean,
yeah, who's going to fact check us? Like, who is really going to fact check us? Anyway, I'm Producer Dave. You can find me on Grindr.
And I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Mastodon at hperrin at port87.social.
Hell yeah. So, if people heard before the show started, we had a laugh track, and that can only mean one thing. That means we're running a trigonometry episode. And one more time, this is the laugh track that Konstantin Kisin put over the YouTube video of his stand-up routine. It literally sounds like it's from a fucking sitcom.
It probably is.
He probably stole it from like from like Who's the Boss or something.
Nope.
Anyway, this is Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, on trigonometry. Again, we said we'd be finding new assholes to talk about, and we haven't talked about Scott Adams yet, so he's definitely an asshole, and he's definitely new to us here.
To me, at a very surface level analysis, it doesn't look legit. It looks targeted, it looks political. But doesn't that make you worry that come election time, which is literally next year, things are going to get very ugly?
Joe may be trying to hold on to keep Hunter out of jail, to maintain his pardonability, but without pardoning him too soon, because then it affects the election. It screams two sides trying to stay out of jail. I mean, honestly, the only way I think Trump stays out of jail is by winning the election. In a way, I think he may have brought it on himself. His very first statement about Hillary Clinton should be in jail. I feel like when he started talking real jail, then politics changed. And they said, if you're going to talk,
he did bring it on himself,
us,
but it wasn't.
We're actually going to put you
trying to lock up Hillary.
Right.
Looks like that's what's happening.
It was through doing crimes.
Yep. But the party of personal responsibility really doesn't like personal responsibility.
Hello and welcome to Trigonometry. I'm Francis Foster.
I'm Konstantin Kisin.
And this is a show for you.
You're who? You're Konstantin Kisin?
Conversations with fascinating people.
Our terrific returning guest today is the creator of Dilbert and a prominent political and cultural commentator today. Scott Adams, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, it's great to have you back. A lot has happened since we last spoke. The last time we had you on the show, you were predicting the outcome of the 2020 election with us. You did say at the time that Donald Trump would win if nothing changed, and then a pandemic and an economic crisis happened. So your provisor was well crafted. We wanted to have you on back on the show for a bunch of reasons. One of them is obviously there is a big election coming up, and we wanted to get a sense of.
I mean, to be clear though, if Donald Trump hadn't absolutely fucking mangled the response to COVID-19, he would have been reelected.
Well, we don't know that, but yeah, it seems more likely than not because the Democrats once again ran a weak candidate.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, we don't know that for sure, but like his response to COVID-19 was just so fucking bad.
The indictment of Donald Trump and the different candidates contesting the field. So let's open up with that. What do you make of everything that's going on so far?
Well, it looks to most people to be completely political. I think if you have four,
that's absolutely not true.
Four of them look a little sketchy to at least half of the country. That it's hard to imagine that this.
But it's no. They keep talking about half of the country. Half of the country doesn't even, like when they say, "Oh, half the country voted for Trump." Now, almost half of the voters voted for Trump. You know what I'm saying? They keep acting like that his movement is 50% of the country, but it's more like 30% of the country.
Well, about 30% of the country voted for him.
Yes.
But his like core base is much smaller than that. It's probably more like 27% of the country. Maybe even like 25.
All right. Well,
political. And if you look at all the surrounding things that have led up to it, from everything from Russia collusion to the laptop hoax to the Find People hoax, you see a pattern of really targeting one person in a huge coordinated way. And I've said that one of the difference between the
yes, social deviant. This is in fact the Dilbert guy.
This is just observational. Is that both sides have a lot of BS. There's a lot of stuff that's not true that people believe. But generally on the Republican side, it seems to bubble up from individuals. So there'll be somebody who has a claim and other people latch onto it. And then maybe someday somebody in leadership will say that claim, and then it becomes a thing. But on the Democrat side, it appears that they do organized, multi-organizational ops.
What the
fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, does he think the misinformation and disinformation coming from the political right is just like spontaneous and organic? Like, I don't understand.
Like, has he not heard of like Fox News, Breitbart, OAN, the Daily Wire? That's
enough. But what I'm saying is, and you don't even need to. There's a lot of moneyed interests too, like behind the scenes that are like the Mercers, the Koch brother, rest in piss, other Koch brother. The Manhattan Institute, the Manhattan Institute, there's just all these think tanks and organizations it's organized. It's not like if you believe that the left is pushing disinformation, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that the right's doing it like in a spontaneous fashion where it's just like one person. Like, this is dumb. These ideas that there's a network effect at play here. Otherwise, it wouldn't spread. What a dumb thing to say.
Yeah, but I mean, Scott Adams is incredibly stupid, so makes sense that he would think
the
that.
Laptop was Russian disinformation. That involved a number of entities. That wasn't a few individuals. There were people in leadership who coordinated across the government, the intel agencies, and the media. And to me, that looks like a RICO case. The American law that would treat a criminal enterprise as operating in some kind of coordinated, ongoing criminal.
Wait. This is racketeering now, saying that this looks like disinformation and contacting other people about it is racketeering.
That is apparently racketeering.
that's a wild claim. I didn't think it was Russian disinformation. I didn't think it was Russian disinformation. The Russians are good at disinformation, and the fucking Hunter Biden laptop didn't make a lick of sense. So the original story in the New York Post didn't make a lick of sense.
Fashion. So that looks really different. And that's what it appears to be from a voter's perspective who's watching the whole field.
And Scott, one of the questions I'm always curious to disentangle is, when you say it looks political, are you saying that Donald Trump is innocent of all the things of which he's being accused, or not guilty at least? Or are you saying that his behavior is akin to Hillary Clinton's server, let's say, or Joe Biden's documents, or various other things that are not prosecuted, yet on Donald Trump's case, they will go after every single little thing every time he put a foot
That's
wrong?
a false dichotomy.
So is it that he's not guilty, or is it that the prosecution is actually persecution, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I think you get lost in the details if you start comparing, the Hillary situation to, Trump or any other.
It could also be like 100% true and still political, and maybe that's what Scott Adam means. It's not what he means, but...
Well, right, but he also actually said something kind of smart there. He's like, here, listen to what he said here. His answer's not bad, actually.
Okay. Well, I think you get lost in the details if you start comparing, the Hillary situation to, Trump or any other. I think it's a valid observation that they're not being treated the same. But I think you could take it up a level and say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he did those things. It doesn't matter how bad they were, because the reason they're going after doesn't seem to be related to what he did.
Wait, what?
You can make
so hold on, pause it for a second here, because they're not being treated the same. Absolutely, 100%. I completely agree with him. They're not being treated the same, and it's because they didn't do the same thing.
Right.
Like, we have Donald Trump. If the government came to Donald Trump and was like, "Hey, you took a bunch of our documents. Can we have them back?" And Trump was like, "Oh yeah, here you go. Here's all the documents," and just gave them all the documents they were looking for. Like, he knew they were there. He was moving them around, trying to hide them. He knew what was there. He knew where they were. So if he had just given them the documents, that would have been it. And that is exactly what Hillary did. That's what Biden did. And that's what Pence did. All of them did those same, did what the government asked. They asked, "Can we have those documents?" And they were like, "Yeah, here you go."
Well,
so yes, they're not being treated the same because Donald Trump broke the law. The others didn't. And that's not the one I think he's going down for. I think he's going down for Georgia. The racketeering case in Georgia. But these things aren't being treated the same because, like you said, more importantly, prosecutorial discretion is what it is, and prosecutors decide not to charge people with crimes that they may have committed all the time. It's just that this guy seems to have he's being charged in a few different places with a few different types of crimes, all sort of related to his time as the president. So it's not like there was one incident. It's it's different because it's different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I've had a traffic ticket before, and they didn't treat me the same as a murderer, and they shouldn't, because a traffic violation isn't the same as murder. What Donald Trump did is not the same as what any of these other politicians that they're comparing him to did.
Situations. But if you look at as I said, the entirety of it, it appears that there are ongoing organized ops to get rid of one person for reasons that are not entirely clear, but it must be probably self-preservation or profit or something. But it doesn't look like we're involved in anything that classically would look like a democratic process. It looks like people in power running operations.
Well, it's not a democratic.
It was an intelligence-based.
Law is not democratic.
Right.
The criminal justice system isn't democratic. You don't vote on whether someone's guilty. I mean, unless you're a juror, but that's a little different. Not everyone is entitled to be a juror. You can't say, I would like to be a juror on Trump's case.
Running the whole thing. I don't know that that's the case. It just looks like it is. And I just don't think the details matter. But the one that really puts it in focus the best is the January 6th stuff. If you had never heard any hoaxes being perpetrated against Trump, you might say, oh, that sounds reasonable that he was trying to overthrow the country or something. But as soon as you start asking any questions about that, such as, all right, connect the dots. Let's say Trump was trying to overthrow the country and he got some people to say that they were the fake electors, but they were the real ones. Let's say they were claiming they were real ones. How would that go? Would everybody else in the country just say, well, you got us. We didn't see you doing this fake elector thing. Let's just go on. You're the president now. Of course not.
But you don't have to. You don't have to succeed at your treason, right? Like,
yeah, attempted robbery is still a crime,
and like, in fact, to be tried for like the treason in this way, you probably have to not succeed, right? Otherwise, if you succeed,
yeah, true.
Then I guess you succeeded, and now you're in control, and nobody's coming after you. Like, this is dumb. This is incredibly dumb. They're also going to focus. I think the weakest one is the January 6th stuff. I think that's going to be the hardest one to prove. They're going to focus on that and stay away from the documents and the Georgia one. I think they're not going to focus, especially not on the Georgia one.
It would go to the Supreme Court, like everything, and then we'd probably get some kind of result we can live with. Or let's say that the protests continued. What was going to happen? Were the people who didn't have weapons, who were trespassing in one building, was that enough to conquer the country? Give me some details about how.
I mean, kind of, yeah. If they killed all the lawmakers, they maybe wouldn't have overthrown the country, but they would have like caused an enormous crisis. Like they were there to kill lawmakers.
Well, some of them were. Some of them were. I think we're lucky that a large percentage of them were just older people there to take pictures for the gram. Honestly, I mean, there was no leadership. Nobody seemed to be in charge. You know what I'm saying? There was no real plan once they got inside, which is good. I mean, they did steal a door, but you're saying for most of them, yeah, there was no real plan once they got inside. But a few of them had a plan, and their plan was political killing, like to kill politicians, specific politicians.
To control of the nuclear triad. And the fact that half of the public believes that was an insurrection or could have been one, or that under any...
This is more than half the public. Again, the way they dice this up is stupid. They're like, well, the election is usually around 50-50 of the votes. So I guess the half the country like always just agrees with me. It's like, no, that's stupid.
Stance that could have turned into something that would have changed the
I'd be interested to know what he thinks an insurrection is, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if that wasn't an insurrection, what would be?
So there were also reports that there were, and no, these weren't found or corroborated, but there were reports that people had stashes of weapons sort of nearby. That they were,
they were talking about them in like their Telegram chats,
probably in Facebook groups too, because these people are idiots. But we don't, this is like, well, what would have happened if? It's like, well, we don't know what would have happened if. Because it didn't happen.
And like Donald Trump knew they were armed. He wanted them to be armed.
I don't know what Donald Trump wanted. You can speculate on that all you want.
No, he said that they weren't here to attack him. Like you watched the January 6th the hearings, right?
Yes.
When he was talking about the mags, the metal detectors, when he was giving his speech on the eclipse, he told them, take away the mags. They're not here to hurt me. So he knew they were armed, and he knew that they weren't trying to hurt him.
Okay.
There's no reasonable way that could have happened But yet half the country has been convinced that it did. Half the country believes the fine people hoax. Half the country believes that the president suggested drinking a disinfectant. None of those things happened. The laptop, we know, was not.
He didn't suggest drinking a disinfectant. He suggested injecting a disinfectant.
Yeah,
he did it on TV, like live television. You can't deny that.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird. Like and this guy's a little bit slippery about it, right? When he kind of plays with the exact wording of things to make it like when he says, well, he didn't say X, but like what he said was worse, probably more dangerous.
Russian disinformation, etc. So the January 6th / insurrection, quote unquote, was just an op. I mean, not the event, but the way it was treated and the way they impeached him was just an op to make something that was a legitimate protest, meaning people had legitimate complaints.
Wow, that was a legitimate protest?
Legitimate complaints.
Overrunning the Capitol building through force is a legitimate protest.
I think right up until the point they did that, they had a legitimate protest, right? Because we have the right to protest anything we want. But yeah, once they started breaking windows and shit and fucking breaking into the Capitol.
I mean, I would say once they started beating up the cops and pushing down the cop barricades.
Well, right. That's what I mean. I don't mean like once they entered. I mean like once they, like up until the point that the large part of the mob started attempting to enter the Capitol, it was a legitimate protest, right? I didn't agree with their grievances, but whatever.
Yeah, it becomes not a legitimate protest once a majority of the people are doing crimes in the building.
Now, I have some different sort of opinions about property crime, but this is a little bit different than busting the windows of a fucking cop shop or something, right? This is like trying to interfere with the peaceful transition of power at the heart of our government. So
through violence and fear.
Yeah,
which is like pretty much the definition of terrorism.
Right. It's very different. It's very different than busting up a cop shop at a protest, right? It's very different.
And they acted out, and some got out of control, and some were violent. But when you see how thoroughly half of the country has been brainwashed into thinking that was something you would call a coup, or
no, it was an attempted coup.
They were trying to overthrow the government,
or at least
that's a coup.
I prefer the language. They were trying to prevent the peaceful transition of power.
Okay, yes, they were trying to prevent the legitimate government from taking power.
Or just the legitimate president. Most of the government was remaining the same, right?
Yeah,
it was
but
just
the legitimate
president.
Leader of the executive branch.
Yeah. Like I said, boy, am I glad they weren't fucking organized.
So again, I really want to know, like, what does he think a coup is? If that's not a coup, so like if that doesn't count as a coup, trying to overthrow the newly elected leader, what is a coup?
I would wager that he probably thinks in terms of like that it's if the military does it, it's a coup, because that's like the most common type of coup. If he was to be asked that, I think he would try to weasel out of it in maybe that way, or just say that, they were just on a tour, that they weren't really there trying to prevent the peaceful transition of power from Donald Trump to Joe Biden.
I mean, he basically said that. He said that it was a legitimate protest.
And to be fair, I don't think a lot of them knew what the fuck they were doing inside that building once they got inside, and that's good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do think it's good that it was mostly dumbasses.
Very disorganized. I don't know if the individuals were dumb, but like, if it would have been like, if there was an Antifa protest anywhere, they have like a soup kitchen and like fucking people like directing traffic and telling everybody where the cops are and shit. I mean, these people are like way disorganized.
I am comfortable saying that everyone who broke into the Capitol the Capitol building that day was a dumbass. I'm perfectly comfortable saying that.
When it
and probably still is a dumbass.
Trump has been treated before the first election and all the way through, seems like more of an insurrection or ongoing coup attempt against somebody who was elected legally once, and his claim is that maybe he got elected twice, but I'll leave that to his claim. I don't have evidence of anything.
So then, like a good interviewer would be like, "Do you believe that Joe Biden won the last election?" You know what I'm saying? That would be a good interview question right here, right now. Even if you are a trigonometry, if you are a anti-leftist organization, still the answer is, well, what do you believe happened? Who do you think won the election?
Yep.
And he would. Some people say this, and half the people say this, and I don't fucking know.
Anything like that.
Scott, to me, I find this whole Trump situation incredibly worrying because Trump, I think most people would realize, is a symptom of the ills of America. He's not the problem itself. But what they're effectively doing,
I mean, he has become a problem himself,
is they're antagonizing his voter base, and they're doing absolutely nothing in order to bring about any type of harmony. This is incredibly dangerous, isn't it?
Wait a minute, they're antagonizing his voter base? See, like, this is okay. First of all, non-Oliver, I want to know what you think he is a symptom of. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you say he's a symptom of the problem, what, just name 2 problems that he's a symptom of. But non-Oliver's not going to do that. Non-Oliver's an idiot. And he just knows that that's like a smarty pants sounding thing to say about this.
Yep.
But I also don't know, like, what is, I don't know, like, what he means to try to bring about harmony. Like, who is supposed to try to bring about harmony, and in what way?
I don't know. And what does he mean by, we're antagonizing, we being, the left, are antagonizing the right?
I mean, that's what we've been doing. I've been antagonizing the political right for a very long time, but I don't think he's talking about me specifically, right?
I mean, I really want to know what exactly he means. Like, does he mean that, like, we're trying to pass laws about, like, allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices? Like, is that antagonistic towards the right?
You know what he's talking about. He's talking specifically still about the indictments and prosecution of the former president.
Okay, well, the left is not doing that. That's the justice system.
But he thinks that that's the thing, is that they're conflating this stuff now, right? Anything they don't like is the radical left.
So to them, the Justice Department is the radical left.
Like how Madison Star Moon yelled at a helicopter and called it a shill. Anything she doesn't like is a shill, right?
Okay.
I'm sorry, was it an airplane or a helicopter?
I'm starting to understand now.
Was it an airplane or a helicopter?
Yes.
Yeah, of course, the big conversation in America is about the division. The Democrats and the Republicans, or the race division, the gender division, et cetera. But here's a reframe from my book, Reframe Your Brain. But this is, you probably didn't even notice that. Here's another way to think of all this division. If I walk outside and run into a Black American, are we going to have a problem? Never.
Well, it may be, because you're incredibly racist. I don't know. If you go about the business of shutting the fuck up, probably not. If they've seen your Twitter, then there's some chance.
Can we rewind like 10 seconds?
Here's another way to think of all this division. If I walk outside and run into a Black American, are we going to have a problem?
So specifically, if Scott Adams ran into a Black American, yeah, he would probably have a problem.
Unless he went about the business of shutting the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, unless Scott Adams minded his own fucking business, yeah, he'd probably generate a problem, because he's Scott Adams. That's what he does. He manifests problems.
In my whole life, I've never had a racial problem with an actual person standing in front of me. But then I go on.
That's because you don't hang out with Black people, Scott.
Also, he's in one of his books, he claimed that he had such a problem because he said he was passed over for a job because a Black person got the job. Now, sure, that person wasn't in front of him, but that's like a real life problem if you assume that he's telling the truth, which I think he thinks that, right? But that's like a real life problem that involving a Black person in his view, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, even if he's right, he's still wrong.
Yeah.
racial. And, I think I'm sending off my good tweet or X post. And I think, got a little dopamine hit. If I'm in person, I can't get a dopamine hit by acting like the racial division is the main thing I want to talk about. In fact, I would avoid it at all costs, politics as well.
Okay, so what I got from that statement is, well, on Twitter, I can be a racist and it makes me happy. But if I was just a racist to a black guy, it wouldn't make me happy.
Right. And I don't think he means it wouldn't. I think he means like I think he may mean that the consequences of such behavior can be unpredictable.
I mean, he literally said he wouldn't get the same dopamine hit.
Yeah, he might get a different kind of hit.
Yeah.
Your cortisol levels. You don't want to get into conflict because your cortisol will go up. You'll feel anxious. It's all negative. As soon as you get online, the cortisol risk goes away because there's nobody there in person. And if you send off a good gotcha, kind of a post, you're like, dopamine.
Maybe just blast out a couple N-words
through the social media,
and then all your followers like it.
Dopamine hits.
So one of the more recent things he did was he said he wanted to move to like a neighborhood where it's all white people or something. I forget. It was some shit that he said that like got him in trouble or whatever. I forget. It was some video he posted on Twitter.
Yep. He said specifically like white people should stop trying to help out black people because black people just aren't thankful enough for it. And it's like, wow.
I remember
incredibly racist.
I remember a different one where he was talking about like how you shouldn't live in an integrated neighborhood or something like that.
I think that was the same stream, different part of the stream.
And dopamine is almost as predictable as money. They say follow the money. Well, money is one of the ways you get dopamine. So if you just look at the dopamine, of course we're acting like we're divided, but it's not real. I mean, that too is somehow a part of the design of the system. I don't know how much is intentional, but it's not a real thing in the real world. As soon as you walk out the door, it doesn't exist.
Scott, I would ask you this. You're watching what is happening with Trump. Now, I'm in agreement with you. To me, at a very surface level analysis, it doesn't look legit. It looks targeted. It looks political. But doesn't that make you worry that come election time, which is literally next year,
at a very surface level analysis, does he mean just listening to what Trump says?
Yeah, again, I don't know. I think he just says like at a surface level because he thinks it makes him sound smart, right? Because
I read the indictment and, well, I read the documents case indictment. I didn't read the RICO one. It's very long. They're all very long, but absolutely, it does not look political. Like he was doing incredibly nefarious things. He was flagrantly violating the law.
Right. And like the other thing is like the fact that he used to be the president might make it political anyway, not in that the motivations of it are political, but that the story around it can't be told in an apolitical way. If you kind of picking up what I'm putting down here, like that you won't be able to tell it without it involving politics because it's a politic. He used to be the fucking president. I mean, how do you know what I mean? The story is political, no matter whether or not the specific motivation of the prosecution is. The story is still a political one. He used to be the president, and it is specifically related to documents he took out of the White House when he was leaving and not being the president anymore. Sounds political.
Yeah, so maybe what Non Oliver means here is instead of it is politically motivated, maybe what he means is it involves a politician.
Yeah, or he may, it just depends because their audience is kind of split on Trump, so they're probably trying to tread kind of lightly.
Yeah. So here's the warning that I try to give everybody. It does look like there might be some attempt by the Democrats or whoever's running things to get the Republicans to overreact. Because if they can get another January 6th kind of reaction, some kind of a mass protest, then once again, they get to say, well, look at all those white supremacists, insurrectionists, Trump's the devil, he's the one who caused.
I'm sorry, but the Democrats aren't the ones calling everybody the devil right now, friendo.
So they can just recreate the same op, and people are already primed to fill in that frame with whatever.
It's interesting that he says that, because Trump, on 2 occasions, the New York indictment and the Georgia indictment, told his followers, probably the other indictments too, during his arrest or before his arrest, he told his followers to come out and he didn't say be violent, but he implied it. He implied that they should be violent. They should violently protest. He implied. I'm not saying he said that, because he didn't say that, but there were implications to what he said.
Sure, but that's more about who he is than what he said, actually. Who he is in the kind of past events, right? That's where maybe that you might think that it was implied. I don't know which exact post you're talking about, so I don't know. I just try really. First of all, I try really hard not to talk that much about what the fuck's going on in Trump world, and then I'd really try not to speculate about what the motherfucker's thinking or what he meant, because who the shit knows.
Okay, so let's say he didn't mean to be violent. The only person telling people to go to those arrests was Trump. It's not like Biden was out there saying, hey, all the Democrats go over to where Trump is being arrested in New York.
That'd be fun, though, if he would have thrown a dance party outside of there.
No one on the Democratic side was saying to go protest. It was, or to go counter protest. It was only Trump telling people to be there. So if anyone is trying to foment the same kind of reaction as January 6th was, it's Trump. It's absolutely Trump. So I don't know why Scott Adams has this like made up world, like where, it's the Democrats that are trying to cause political unrest. But I mean, it's probably just because Scott Adams is a smooth-brained moron.
Oh, or it's just motivated reasoning. He's incredibly biased and tries to pretend he's not. I think that's what it is that he's just a partisan hack, and he doesn't, and he's trying to pretend that he's not one. I mean, I'm not really partisan, but I'm pretty, our bias is kind of out front for everybody to see. We don't pretend like that we're, shooting straight down the middle or whatever. But I think this guy, and I don't think anybody believes him, but I think he needs to be able to tell himself to some extent that he's kind of a straight shooter or whatever. And he's not. He's clearly like very biased in favor of the former president. And it's his right to be so. But it's just so crazy that people like act like he's some big thinker. He's not.
He has enlightened centrist syndrome.
So I don't want to say, if this happens, there will be, violent acts, because then I would be part of, maybe encouraging people to think in those ways. And I don't encourage any violence. Instead, I'd rather say that we're creating a situation which has no predictability. In other words, if Trump were to lose again, let's say worst case scenario, he runs against Joe Biden, which looks to be like that's going to happen, at least some people imagine. And Biden continues to degrade until it's just obvious there's nothing there at this point. But imagine if Trump lost under that situation.
Hold on. Continues to degrade until it's just obvious there's nothing there at this point.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Because he's kind of sort of mixing present and future tense.
Yeah.
Regardless, like what he said aside, no matter what he was talking about, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into whether or not I don't want to get into a protracted discussion of Joe Biden's cognitive ability if we can avoid that.
Okay, but I would like to say that
we can't avoid that.
I don't think Scott Adams watches Joe Biden through like regular colored glasses. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah,
like he only sees the clips that are portrayed in the right-wing media.
I believe that's likely, yes. But I don't want to like get into a discussion about that if we can avoid it.
Okay.
his supporters would say that was a fair election. They just preferred the guy with no cognitive ability over Trump. Would you say that? Or do you think they're going to say, well, there's proof? First time we weren't positive, we were suspicious, but this second time he was running against an empty suit. If he loses then, that's unpredictable. Now, if I were to advise people how to act if they were sure an election had been, let's say, not completely fair, definitely wouldn't be with guns, definitely wouldn't be with violence. But the same thing I would recommend if Trump spends a day in jail. Everybody should show up. Everybody. Like, you should just walk off your job and just show up.
Show up where?
1 million people standing around the jail, and you don't need any violence, right? At some point.
But he knows that the
peaceful-
consequence of that happening would be violence. Like, Scott Adams has to know that. He's not that stupid.
And I mean, he's like, he says, just show up. I just wonder where he means.
I think he meant to the jail, right?
Sure, but like, okay, so let's say, for whatever reason, let's just speculate that the judge in the Atlanta case decides that, nah, I gotta incarcerate you until the trial because you're wilding out, right? You're violating the conditions of your release. So, does he think people in LA are going to go to Atlanta? What does he mean, everyone? Do you know what I'm saying? It's such a weird thing to say.
I mean, I think it's like akin to like stochastic terrorism, you know, where like he knows that crazy people are listening. And if he tells enough people to go do something, then he knows that some of them will be those crazy people. And the crazy people will do the thing that he's saying to everyone to not do.
And not for nothing, a jail is pretty well fortified. It's going to be pretty hard.
That's true.
Anything that's hard to get out of is also hard to get into.
It's only as fortified as the guards are
willing
so if
to.
the guards are on the side of the terrorists, then you know.
Yeah, but that's speculative again. I'm just saying that like it's not like the Capitol where there's like a lot of windows and a lot of points of entry. Because generally the Capitol building's just open. And a jail tends not to be open for business. I mean, it's open for business if you end up in there, I suppose, but that's different. So it's like they're not getting inside. Like, they're just not. It would be very difficult. You and me could defend a jail as long as we had the fucking ability to keep everything locked. Right?
I mean, you can only have that ability for so long.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I'm just saying it's a different scenario than the Capitol.
Yeah.
They're very different types of buildings.
Energy can be as big as violence and more productive. So I think something massive in terms of physical action, short of violence, would be the right play. But I don't know exactly what that looks like. So there are not a lot of options if we reach that point.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a lot of options. Do you think that this has damaged?
I mean, they're basically saying like our only option is violence right there. Like
Yeah.
what how else would you interpret that?
And they also just assume that we'll use Atlanta. They also assume that the people of Atlanta are going to tolerate this shit. Somebody coming, like, you know what I'm saying? A bunch of people coming and doing this. They like, you know, like, it's weird. They assume that if this happened again, and especially in a city like Atlanta, that they wouldn't be resisted by other people, not just law enforcement or the National Guard, but other fucking people.
I mean, here's like I have another option for them. Just accept the conclusions of the justice system. And I can't believe that I am saying that.
Well, right, but I mean, I'm like, his fantasy just relies on like a lot of assumptions. First, that people are going to go. Like, not that many people are going to go. Remember when Trump did call for everybody to show up at his court date and fucking like a few dozen people showed up?
Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that he like assumes a lot of people will go. The other assumption is that if a bunch of people show up at the jail, they'll just let them out. That's dumb. He also and baked into this is the assumption that they could do a violence to get him out of jail, but that's very difficult. They would get shot. It's just
Yep.
They would get shot.
I mean, what he's essentially advocating for, he's not literally advocating for it, but he's saying that it's the only option, is political terrorism.
And like I said, baked into his thing is just the assumption that nobody would resist against this millions or whatever, which is a stupid thing to think, that there's be millions of people if Trump got like incarcerated, if Trump got put in pretrial detainment or whatever. So this is his thing is really stupid. You think the people of Atlanta are going to fucking just sit there while a bunch of shit kickers come and try to break Trump out of jail? I don't think so.
I don't think it would be the people of Atlanta's job. I think it would be.
It doesn't matter that it's not their job.
I think the National Guard would get called in.
But okay, I don't think it's the people of Atlanta's job, but I don't think they want their city being invaded by a bunch of shit kickers. So I think they would show up. Actually,
I mean, probably, hopefully.
I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win the nomination. But do you think that's actually damaged his chances of winning the election as a whole, the fact that he's got all these indictments against him?
I think there are only two things that could stop him. Well, maybe three. One would be a rigged election. That could stop him. Two would be if he keeps talking, because, things he says, they take out of context. So if he says a new thing, they can take out of context.
He's going to keep talking, sir.
A whole new weapon.
I mean, you can play them in context. They're not any better.
And doesn't say much more than the things he always says. He should just coast into the presidency. Now, the other thing, which has no scientific basis, maybe, is the idea. Elon Musk says this, and I like to say it as well. That reality tends to be biased toward the most entertaining outcome. Not for the people in the story, it might be all bad for them, but from the observer's point of view, the most entertaining outcome. And by far, the most entertaining outcome, if you know a standard 3-act movie play, at the end of the third act, the hero of the movie is in such a bad situation, you can't even imagine how they would get out, and somehow they do. Here's what the perfect movie would look like. I don't predict it. I'm just telling you, if that way of predicting works.
The fuck is he talking about?
Trump is either, on the risk of going to jail or even maybe spends a day in jail. And somehow, at about the same time as the election is nearing, proof of election irregularity in 2020 is provided. Like, it actually comes out of nowhere. I don't see any. Let me be clear. I'm not aware of any election irregularity that I think is credible. But that would be the perfect movie if the thing that most people have discounted at this point, I don't think there's going to be any smoking gun. We're not going to find anything, if there is anything. It would be the perfect movie to sweep him into office based on finding out that was true, and then to clean house and take care of as much business as he needs to. Now, at this point, I think it's an existential risk to Democrats.
So notice he didn't, none of his options were, he just loses the election.
No, because he can't say that as one of the options. Well, he can, but then his fans aren't going to like it.
I mean, that is, like, he has never won the popular vote. So that is the most likely outcome, that he just loses the election.
Well,
based on history, that's the most likely outcome.
Yes. I'm not here to speculate. So I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know. I kind of don't even like this piece of content we got, because it's really like a lot of Trump stuff. Like, and I like don't like talking about this stuff.
They're not looking at just losing an election. And I think they know that, because once you say, Trump, we're going to put you in actual jail and we're trying as hard as we can to do it, the gloves are off. There's nothing to keep Trump from saying, all right.
I mean, who's saying that, though? It's not Biden saying that. It's the Justice Department saying that.
Well, and
it's the prosecutors that are prosecuting him saying that.
Right.
Even Merrick Garland doesn't say that.
Correct. And
Merrick Garland has gone out of his way to appear not politically biased, to the point that he is politically biased towards Trump and against the Democrats.
The gloves are off. There's nothing to keep Trump from saying, all right, if I can find any ridiculous reason that you broke a law, we're not going to play the old rules where if it isn't a good reason, you don't pursue it, because that's not the way they play it. So in a way, I think he may have brought it on himself. His very first statement about Hillary Clinton should be in jail. I feel like when he started talking real jail, then politics changed. And they said, if you're going to talk real jail for us, we're actually going to put you in jail. And it looks like that's what's happening.
I think actually,
who said that?
Hold on. I think actually that calling for the imprisoning of your political opponents might be one of them things that crosses the line from the First Amendment. And that maybe you should face charges for doing something like that, because that's such a dramatic violation of our political norms that, like, you shouldn't do that, because we're supposed to have a justice system for that. Now the problem is that now that the justice system's doing it, because Trump was talking about doing it to Hillary Clinton, yeah, a lot of people are able to just act like it's payback for him saying that he was going to do it to Hillary Clinton or whatever.
Yep.
That's kind of what Scott Adams is doing here.
But Biden never said that?
Yes, I understand. But that's like,
yep.
Yeah, I understand.
Harris never said that. Even Garland never said that.
So if he wins in this third...
So again, I would want to know, who does Scott Adams think said that? Like, who in his mind is saying that who in his mind is saying these things that he's attributing to, them, the left?
I mean, the guy's just been indicted of crimes. It's not anybody even saying this. Right.
The prosecutors are saying you should be in jail, but they're not saying you should be in jail because you said Hillary should be in jail. They're saying you should be in jail because you did all these crimes that we have proof of.
Right. Or that we intend to prove in court or whatever. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they call it proof.
Yes, sure.
If the prosecutors didn't call it proof, they wouldn't be good prosecutors.
In this third act, miraculous, don't expect it, but who knows, find something about the election this
dude, it's so sad watching like Scott Adams, like really like this is his like headcanon. He's invented this scenario where Trump is the hero and everything works out, and it's really weird.
Except he's been doing this for a very long time. So it's not that weird.
Sure. I mean, it's not weird for him to be doing it, but it's weird for like an adult to be doing it. Like for a kid, sure, a kid might look at an older person and go, "Oh, they're going to do everything and everything's going to be right and they're the hero." But like when you're older, you kind of realize like people aren't heroes. Like you shouldn't rely on someone to be good all the time, because everyone is bad.
Right, like my Twitter bio says, your heroes are trash, probably.
Yep. Like even the bestest person has been a douchebag sometimes.
In this third act, miraculous, don't expect it, but who knows, find something about the election that sticks, then a lot of people, I think, you'd try to jail. And I'd be in favor of that, actually.
Well, if you think about your scenarios in part 3, I mean, him winning as a result of election interference in 2020 being revealed, if there is any, I think is unlikely given what we've seen in terms of, the Hunter Biden laptop. That got suppressed a few days before the election. So even if there is anything, which, as you say, there's no evidence that we have that there is, I don't know that would get there. But what I'm curious to ask...
So there's no evidence, like this shit's, there's no evidence of it, but if there were, it would be suppressed. Like, you're inventing a conspiracy theory to, like, for something that hasn't even not happened yet. I don't know how to, I can't believe I just said that, right? Like, I wasn't even quite sure how to say what I was saying there because of how stupid this is.
It's a conspiracy theory of conspiracy theories.
Is a bigger picture question, which is what you've described is actually a very sad downward spiral for your country. And the question, I suppose, is this. I am old enough to remember when Al Gore lost the election to George Bush. It was very close. The Democrats fought, but eventually conceded that he'd lost and George Bush became president. When Hillary lost to Donald Trump in 2016, she took a long time. And in fact, I don't know if she ever fully accepted.
She conceded the next day.
Yeah,
Fucking idiot.
I think it might have even been the night of. Might have been late. I mean, the next day, like 3 a.m. or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, she conceded a few hours after the election.
Right. She conceded pretty much as soon as it was called.
Yeah, but
She called him an illegitimate
Constantine is a fucking idiot.
president.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And I take responsibility for those parts of it that I should. And so I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level. I don't know that we'll ever know everything that happened, but clearly we know a lot and are learning more every day. And history will probably sort it all out. So of course he's obsessed with me, and I believe.
Yeah, I don't know why she went out and said that.
Guilty conscience, in so much as he has.
The only thing she could have said is look, I got more votes than the guy, and I'm not the president, and I think that's pretty fucked up. And that would be about it. You know what I'm saying? That would be about all that would be responsible to go out and say.
That was okay. She wasn't, kicked off Twitter and whatever. And then Donald
But she
Trump
also admitted that he won.
Yeah, she conceded.
Election. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm not normally in the predictions business, but I'm going to say whoever loses the election in 2024 is going to claim it was illegitimate one way or another. And that's not a hard prediction to make, let's be clear, right? If it's close, especially. So where does that leave America? And how does a society that has become, I mean, you say the division is online, and I agree with you, but online filters through to real life, and people who are online then go out into the streets. How does a country like the United States handle this sort of political rancor and disagreement and dispute about the very basic outcomes of your elections?
Well, let me give you the old guy perspective. I finally reached the age where I can say, let me tell you how things used to be when I was a kid, right? So I got to, live through the 70s when all those long-haired hippies were sure that war was going to destroy the world, and then the old people were sure that the hippies would never be good citizens who could keep the country going. And then you fast forward, and those same hippies are running everything and doing a pretty good job, individually.
Running everything into the ground. I guess the old people were right.
But also, this is dumb because not everybody of that generation was a hippie.
Yeah.
It's like saying that everyone from my generation was a fucking raver, right?
Yep.
And they weren't. Trust me. I knew some of my best friends weren't ravers.
But we've had how many crises since I was born? We were running out of oil, but not really. We were running out of food, but not really. We were going to be all nuking each other. There was going to be a hole in the ozone, and it's just on and on.
There was a hole. So what? There was one of those things is not like the other. There was a hole in the ozone, and we fixed it through laws.
Well, yeah, it's not completely fixed. Yeah, it is recovering. Yeah. It's a good portion of the way back to where it was. So that's
Scott Adams is a fucking moron.
The optimism that I would give you is that humans are insanely good at adapting if they can see a problem coming. Now, the problem we're talking about, I think everybody sees. So even if they think the elections are good, they can certainly see that half of the country is skeptical, and they know that's a problem by itself. So we can all.
But it's not 50% when you ask. Polling does not show that 50% of the people in this country think that the 2020 election was like fraudulent. He's just wrong again. He keeps saying half because
it's 70% of Republicans, and Republicans are about what? 40%
less
of the country
because the independents or unaffiliated are the largest voting bloc actually.
Okay,
but it doesn't matter.
So like 25%.
It doesn't matter. You're right because half of not even all Republicans think that, And so it's not 50%, but this guy's fucking got brain worms where he thinks, well, half the country's Democrat and half the country's Republican. It's like, you dumb fuck. Those are not even, neither of those are the biggest voting bloc. It's the unaffiliated are the biggest voting bloc. Now, don't get me wrong. Most of those people lean one way or the other, and their voting habits would tend to show you that they might as well be a Democrat or a Republican, but that's the biggest voting blocks. And this guy's just an idiot. He hasn't thought about this very deeply and hasn't looked into any of this stuff at all. It's all vibes for him. All vibes.
Where you can all see the problems. I even have a name for it. It's called the Adams Law of slow-moving disasters. If you can see it coming, like the year 2000 bug, the year 2000, we saw it coming. So even though we didn't have much time, it was enough. The things that really
we saw it coming in like 1985.
And a lot of the stuff that people thought was going to break wasn't actually going to break. You know what I'm saying? There was a bit of a moral panic around it as well as the actual problem. So it got blown up bigger than it was anyway.
Yeah, there were like extremely few systems that actually represented the year using 2-digit number. Extremely few systems.
And some of them were important and they were fixed.
Yeah. Like the vast majority of systems either represented like the number of seconds since the Unix epoch or represented like the year in 4 digits or some other way. But like, I mean,
there were people
very few systems.
There were people that thought crazy things like their microwave doesn't work. And I was like, no, your microwave doesn't know or care what day it is, friendo.
I mean, people were thinking planes were going to fall out of the sky.
Right. The plane might know and care what day it is, but the pilot knows.
Probably not.
The pilot sure as shit knows what day it is, so that's fine.
Yeah, and if the plane is like aiming for the ground, the pilot would just go, "Oh, let me just take back control and aim for the sky instead."
COVID, because even though some people saw it coming, we weren't really ready in the sense of really seeing it coming. So I would say this is one of those we can see it coming. Everybody's sure there's a problem with the election, at least credibility, if not the vote itself. And we all know that we're heading toward more problems, not fewer. So I would expect we'll probably do something like hitting bottom. So one possibility is that whatever the aftermath of the next election is so bad that we say, all right, we're finally going to fix the system. So we're going to do whatever we need to do, which we mostly know what to do.
Okay, what part of the systems need to be fixed? What do we need to do? Like, he's like, well, we mostly know we need to fix the system. And then he's just going to fucking move on without even like giving you any information as to what he thinks, like what system, the whole system, the voting system, what changes need to be made. And who is we that all knows the answer?
Don't you know, Dave? Just the nebulous systems that need to be fixed and the nebulous we that all know that.
Or the other possibility, which is just as likely, is that we will go on as if nothing happened. because have you ever tried to talk to people who don't do what we're doing for a living? If you talk to a normie lately, like here's my general conversation. This is yesterday, with a living human being, an adult. So, I got a story to tell you about Vivek Ramaswamy. Who? Vivek Ramaswamy, he's running for president. What? You've never heard of Vivek Ramaswamy? You don't even know he's running for president? No. Well, let me test this one. Prigozhin, head of the Wagner Group, recently allegedly blew up in an airplane.
That's the guy they pushed his airplane out of a window. It's happening to Russian oligarchs.
I've had outside of my little politics bubble. So if you take that into the election, 1% of the country notices that they're unhappy. A bunch of people on social media complain, but they always were complaining anyway. The government just grinds on and puts into office whoever they put into office. And, we're worrying about the economy again after that. So it's possible that nothing.
That is the most likely.
That his anecdotal person that he talked to is representative of like all normal people.
To be fair, he this was in a hipster coffee shop.
No matter what
But
happens.
like, I can't imagine that most people in the United States do know who Vivek Ramaswamy is. Like, we're so early in the election cycle, people aren't paying attention, and they're not going to be for months. And they shouldn't. They shouldn't have to. It's ridiculous how long our election cycles are.
They basically start as soon as the last election ends.
Yep. And it's because there's so much money in politics.
It's just
So
sloshing
much.
around.
And there really shouldn't be. Citizens United needs to be overturned.
Well, there's also other decisions, but yeah, that'd be a good start. Yeah, most people don't know and they don't care. And he's right. I mean, that most regular people who aren't like terminally online and super into politics aren't even gonna they're gonna probably have a preferred candidate because of like their personal values. But yeah, they're not gonna freak out over the result of the next election. Probably most people don't, and that's probably good.
There just aren't enough people who are
Well,
involved.
counter argument to that would be, Scott, that if you ask those same normies about January the 6th, they're all going to know what it was and have an opinion on it. And that, you could argue, is the product of that.
Well, yeah,
very
that was
same-
much bigger news than Vivek Ramaswamy.
Right. To be fair, Ford Truck Month is bigger news than Vivek Ramaswamy. So it's Toyota-thon.
It's like, excuse me, sir, do you know about the latest Intel processor? No? Okay, do you know about the moon? Yes? Okay, that's the problem, see? People don't know about the processors, but they know about the moon. That's crazy. Crazy how that works.
Yes, but let's say Joe Biden wins and that very same system says everything was fine. The normie is going to say, well, it looks like everything's fine. You won fair and square. Trump was unpopular. That's the whole story.
I mean,
And then
that's
we would
literally
just
what
go
happened
on.
last time.
Yeah, that's what's probably, and that's I think the most likely outcome this time too.
Yep.
Or Trump is deeply unpopular and somehow manages to get the right votes in the right places and wins the electoral college, but loses by 6 or 7 million votes in the popular vote, and then we just keep going like that's a normal thing that should keep happening.
Of course, the Republicans would.
I mean, it's how every Republican has won at least their first term in the past, 35 years? My
I don't know.
entire life, a
Starting
Republican has
with
never
2020.
won.
Starting in 2020, yeah.
No, starting in 1992. A Republican has never won their first election, their first term in presidential office by winning the popular vote.
But they're doing that
The
now.
only election where the Republican did win the popular vote was Bush's second term since
There's not much
I was born.
You know what's happening because of the complaints. We have something to talk about. That's it. There's nothing physically happening.
Hey, KK, do you
Journalism.
mainstream with what's happening? That it, like I said, eventually everybody will know about it. And the other counter argument is, whilst I take your point, everybody's becoming more political now. Everybody is, and certainly young people.
Well, are they? I'll tell you the feeling I get and the energy I get is this energy for a national divorce, and we'll pick up our weapons if something goes wrong, and we're gonna have to have a revolution.
By national divorce, he means civil war.
And all that. I don't feel any of that energy in the real world. When I walk outside, there's none of it. So my assumption that there will be massive political grassroots, massive problems, almost zero. There will be political groups who will protest, but organized groups that have funding from somebody, and they got together online. But it's not going to.
There will be domestic terrorist groups who commit acts of domestic terrorism.
I don't know if that will happen.
That has been happening consistently for the last 50 years. Do you think it's all of a sudden going to stop now?
But I don't know if that will happen directly as a result of the next election.
Okay.
It'd be, the 1% acting out. So I just don't think there's going to be massive civil unrest. We'll just be more complaining online mostly.
Well, you're right. I mean, that sort of national divorce thing, having traveled across America, never heard one person. I was talking to political people. It's a very online conversation, I think, and not necessarily a particularly useful one. However, the question I did want to ask you is, you said we mostly know how to fix the election system so that it's transparent and fair and seen to be both. How do you do that?
Well, it might be fair. That's the part I don't know, because it's unknowable, because there are elements of the election system that are not transparent by their nature. For example, wouldn't you like to see the code of all the machines and where that goes to, and then the code of how it's being counted? And wouldn't you like to see it before and after an election? Okay,
so one of there are independent groups that audit this code. I think it should be open source. I think it should be open source, but there are groups and individuals that have been able to audit this code.
Yeah, it may not necessarily, like, I don't think it should necessarily be free code, meaning like under something that is considered a free and open source license. But it should be open source, meaning that anyone can download and analyze the source code.
Would you like to see if anything changed since the last time you looked at it? I mean, that would be a basic thing. Or alternately, you can find out if something changed. Hold on, you just there's hashes you can use to find that stuff out. You idiot. Countries don't use any electronic stuff because by its nature, it's too hard to make it transparent. Because you can always say, but the thing you showed me, is that exactly what's in the machines? How do I know? How do I know you didn't send me like a fake thing or show me the one machine that's not rigged, or only a few machines have to be rigged, so it doesn't matter how many.
I mean, I'm fine with doing all paper ballots. He does know that would cost more, right? He has to know that.
California already does all paper ballots.
Yeah, and we're 1/10 of the country, so
his problem here is he's probably one of these hand count guys. But he's not going to say it, right? He's going to just dance around it.
Yeah.
Likely you'd find a bad one. So as soon as you have anything electronic in the system, even if the company could assure you that it's fair, and even if you were sure it was, you would never be able to prove it. It wouldn't have the transparency that you need for this kind of level of importance. So the first thing is, do you even want electronic machines? The second thing is, the ballot boxes and the identifications and the, making sure that people vote just once. Take a simple idea. Somebody suggested this. I don't know if this is the idea, but if your ballot drop boxes had to be near an ATM, let's just say we made a law. I'm just spitballing here and brainstorming, but all of the ATMs have cameras. So we would know if the same person showed up 50 times. That's one of the claims.
But you can show up to a ballot drop box 2 times. Like if I drop my ballot off and then I also drop my wife's ballot off, that's me showing up to a ballot box and dropping a ballot in it twice. But that's not me voting twice.
This is really dumb. Also, like, how good does he think the camera at an ATM is? It's designed to see you when you're at the ATM, right? It's not designed to see a ballot box 20 feet or 10 feet off to the side. Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? I think there's a fisheye on there that just sees the whole neighborhood
with retinal scanners.
Yeah. Like, what does he think's going on here? It's there to like mostly protect the bank. Like, they don't give a shit about the ballot box nearby.
Yeah.
That has never been demonstrated to my satisfaction. But, all we'd have to do is make sure there's video on all of the drop boxes. Now,
that's all we got to do.
Security issues, blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure we could work through them. Those are all legal hurdles that could be unhurdled. You could take the hurdles away. So I'm no expert on the system. But if I said to you, there has to be transparency, there have to be 2 people, from opposing sides watching every part of the counting.
There already is.
Then there are tons you can go observe. Anybody can go observe. Literally anyone can.
Yep.
And again, opposing sides, what about like other part? What about independents, people who aren't registered? What about them? Like, you know what I'm saying? Not that they're not registered, but not registered as a Republican or a Democrat. Now, just people from the opposing sides. What about the independents? Shouldn't they be allowed? Like, you know what I'm saying? This is stupid.
Yeah, like anyone can go and watch the counting.
I mean, assuming that there's enough room. Like, if too many people show up, there's just not room for you. But then there's already enough observers there by that. You know what I'm saying? Like, once you,
Yeah.
like the idea is for the transparency is that you will let a reasonable amount of people observe the counting, and if the place is filled up, well, that's already been taken care of. And
Yeah,
like
at some point, you do have to trust someone,
right? And
you have to trust the guy who says that he's a Republican and he was watching all of it go down, and it's fine,
right? And
like, if you don't trust that guy, you don't trust the people that are counting. You don't trust the people that made the machine that you voted on. You don't trust, like, if you don't trust anyone, then why even vote?
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, you know, the machines that count the ballots. I mean, you can, unless you're like an expert on how that machine works, you can only kind of glean so much information from that, like watching it. Do you know what I'm saying? And people might do things there that you think appear to be suspicious, but that's just sort of part of their daily routine as working with these machines. So I'm not sure that more, just two people from opposing sides really solves anything. I think more than that are allowed in these spaces anyway.
Yeah, you might see someone eating a ginger mint and think, I should ruin their life over that.
And that would get me a lot closer to at least feeling we were serious about transparency. The way things are now, it sends a very clear message that the people in charge, maybe on both sides, don't want full transparency. That's the message I get as a...
So the things he described largely already exist, except for the cameras at each drop box. But I mean, if there weren't cameras pointing at drop boxes, how would Dinesh D'Souza have gotten all that footage to like lie about?
Yeah, of people going and picking up the ballots at those drop boxes.
A citizen, I don't see
that
a
was
lot
the
of
craziest thing, is like there was someone in a van whose job it was to go pick up the ballots at a ballot box, and Dinesh was like, look at this person coming and taking these ballots. Isn't that suspicious? And it's like, no.
It's like, well,
why would that be suspicious? How else are they going to get to where they're counted? They don't count them at the ballot drop off.
Right, that would be insecure. What if the wind blows one of them away? Like, you're just standing out there and it starts raining and now you can't read the fucking ballots. Like,
serious on the Republican side. I don't see it on the Democrat side. They talk about, normal improvements of things, but nothing like what would give us full transparency. For example, I don't have any way to find that my vote got recorded and successfully, in the final database.
That's incorrect.
You do in California.
Yeah, I think he lives in California, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you do. You can track your.
Oh, then he's wrong.
But I don't know. I said I think he lives in California, but I would have to assume that most states have a similar system where you can see what's up with your ballot.
Yeah, you tear the little tab off at the top, and then you go online and you put in the number that's on the tab, and it tells you whether your ballot was counted.
No, but then you have to believe them.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there really no way to do that, even for a sample group of people? For example, couldn't you have a law that says some randomly selected group of people will be the only ones who have, by opt-in, they can check their vote, but nobody knows who they are. So then you could do a random sample and say, okay.
But what about California where you can just do it?
Yeah,
it's not even random because it's fucking everybody.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of random. It's randomly 100% every time.
This guy doesn't know what the shit he's talking about.
Yeah.
Did these 10,000 people, did they check and their vote actually was recorded as they voted or not? You wouldn't have to check everybody. You could check 10,000 randomly. So there's probably a whole bunch of things you could do.
Or you could check whoever wants to check, because everyone can check.
Full transparency, but I don't really see an effort.
All right, we got to fucking, I can't take one more minute of this. Fuck this shit. This guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. I just found out from chat that this guy lives in Danville, California, which really sucks because that's just round the way from me. And
so yeah, he's a fucking moron. Doesn't even know that you can check whether your vote was counted online. So he's never even bothered to read the top of the ballot. It tells you that on the top of the ballot.
I wonder if he even bothered to vote.
Probably not.
Like, yo. Or somebody we're hearing from chat in election in Georgia, you can actually see how someone else voted. And I think in California, after a certain amount of time, it becomes a matter of public record. Because I think one time the good wife yelled at me for not voting. So,
okay, you can see whether someone voted, not who they voted for.
Oh, that I don't know. Unless he has that house in Danville and also lives somewhere else and is registered to vote somewhere else, then he has no idea what he's talking about. Yeah, you just tear that thing off. I've never bothered to track my ballot. But
yeah, me neither. But I know you can.
Yeah,
because I read the ballot.
Yeah. It lets you do it. Yeah, I should have tracked it, I guess, no, fuck that. I have other shit to do. I'm not going to track my ballot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, this guy just straight up doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think, like, somebody in chat earlier was saying that he, like, had a successful comic and he thinks that makes him, like, good at things. Like, makes him competent at any number of things, which is untrue.
He is competent at having a successful comic strip. Period.
Having previously had a successful comic strip, his recent antics have actually made a lot of newspapers be like, maybe not so much.
That's right. He's not even competent at that anymore.
But it isn't even because he can't draw Dilbert or whatever. It's because he can't shut the fuck up. And like the biggest, if you could imagine this, the biggest newspapers where you make the most money are in cities, and people in the cities, they find out the Dilbert guy lost his mind and they're like, well, fuck Dilbert and fuck the Dilbert guy.
Yep.
That was really hard. I don't like covering, like, not just on this show, but on any of my stuff. I don't like covering stuff that's this much partisan politics. I think you and I end up talking past each other in a lot of times because you want to talk about partisan politics and I don't give a fuck.
I do enjoy talking about partisan politics.
And but also it's just a trudge. Because I just don't give a shit what the Dilbert guy thinks about partisan politics. And I'm sure if we listened to it more, they'd get into some fucking crap about cancel culture that I'd be more interested in probably. But I can't take one more minute of that fucking video. If we were going to try to watch that whole thing, we'd be here till like 11 o'clock. Because I had to keep starting it. And then when you started talking again, I had to back up 5 seconds. So like we would have been here fucking forever. It would not have been like this.
Oh my God, this feels like forever.
It would just be forever.
So maybe, since you don't like talking about partisan politics and I do like talking about partisan politics, do you know if anyone has ever started a podcast where a white cis male middle class man talks about partisan politics? Do you know if that's ever been done before?
An engineer, even?
Yeah, a software engineer, man. Yeah.
No, I don't think that exists. You should corner the market on that shit.
I should definitely do that. Yeah. I don't think that's been done.
All right. Well, you want to read us out this week?
All right. Thank you for tuning in. This has been the Intellectual Dollar Tree, where we pick the lowest hanging branches of the intellectual dollar tree every week. If you're watching live, then right after the upcoming song, we'll be playing, we'll be doing Red Light. So stick around for that. And if you'd like to check out our other shows, you can do that you can check them out at echoplexmedia.com. Check us out live at twitch.tv/echoplexmedia. And if you'd like to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/echoplex. And you can also do that at our store, eplex.store. Now, this is Boomers by Periscope.